Have you ever heard of the little lost princess Anastasia? For nearly 100 years, the world was captivated by what had happened to her. Was she dead? Or had she survived? And if she had, what happened to her? To answer any of these questions, we must delve into the past and explore the realities of not only Anastasia, but her entire family. My name is Fallon, and today I'll be talking to you about what happened to the Romanovs. You see, when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with the animated movie Anastasia, and as I grew older, I became more and more interested in Russian history. So I took what I already knew, and then I did a little more research, and now here we are. Today I will endeavor to tell you who exactly the Romanovs were, what happened to them, and why Anastasia became one of the most prominent mysteries of the 20th century. So let's start by talking about who they were. The Romanovs were Russian Imperial monarchs. They came to power in the year 1613. The very first Romanov Tsar was Mikhail Fedorovich Romanov. He came to power in a very dark time in Russian history, and according to Ian Gray, in his book The Romanovs, published in 2016, with his acceptance to the throne, the time of troubles ended and a new era began. The Romanov dynasty would last 300 years. Now, if we fast forward to the other end of those 300 years, we'll meet the very Romanovs we're discussing today, the last Romanovs. The family was made up of Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Tsarina Alexandra Fedorova, their four daughters Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and last but not least, their son and heir, Alexei. Nicholas and Alexandra were devoted to each other, and they doted on their children, but they were also leaders of one of the world's superpowers during a time in which the world was rapidly changing. So it was only a matter of time before the unthinkable happened. The Romanovs quite brutally fell from power, and there were quite a few reasons why. So first of all, Nicholas had never wanted to be Tsar in the first place. He never bothered to learn about the affairs of states and came to rely on the advice of his ministers for everything. This was a problem because his ministers were older and staunchly adverse to change, which was an even bigger problem because the Russian people had been straining for a representative government for years already. And when they realized the young Tsar had no plans for change, anger and hatred began to fester in the working class. Then World War I broke out, and Nicholas insisted, despite the fact that the country was beyond poor, that they join the war, and he essentially sent hundreds and hundreds of Russians just to die. So while the people starved at home and the men were slain in droves abroad, that anger and hatred that I mentioned from before began to boil over. That's why in November of 1917, there was a people's uprising led by the Bolshevik Party, socialists, who dissolved the autocratic government and took the royal family hostage. They held them captive for a few months, and then according to Susan Coleman in an article from the Salem Press Encyclopedia entitled The Identification of Anastasia Romanov's Remains, on July 17, 1918, Nicholas II of Russia, his family members, the family physician, and 3 servants were herded to the basement and executed by firing squad. The bodies were then placed in a shallow pit, and sulfuric acid was added to impede the identification process. Now that we know what happened to the Romanovs, let's discuss why Anastasia became such a big mystery. There were 3 factors that played into the mystification of Anastasia's death. The first of which being, according to Jack Howen in his 2018 article for the Globe and Mail, the Bolsheviks maintained for decades that the Tsar alone had been killed. This means that it was not until 1991 that the Soviets exhumed the bodies and confirmed the deaths of the other family members. The second reason being that when they did exhume those bodies, they only found the Tsar, his wife, and 3 of their daughters, meaning that one of the girls and Alexei was missing. This excited the rumors that Anastasia was alive somehow, and that maybe even Alexei had survived with her. Alas, the 2 extra bodies were found later in the woods behind the house where they were held captive. But we still to this day don't know why they were separated. The third reason is that there were many imposters who came forward pretending to be Anastasia, hoping to gain the title and become rich and famous. Now, in conclusion, today I've told you about the Romanovs. The Romanovs, who were Russian imperial monarchs, who were assassinated amidst World War I, and whose daughter became one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. I hope that you've enjoyed listening to me speak, and I hope that, in the future, if you ever see the movie or the musical, or just are talking about the Romanovs or the little lost Princess Anastasia, you stop and think about me and today.